The most engaging, impactful, informative, and entertaining talk show ever. Get ready to hear the voices of many local, state, and national artists, musicians, comedians, pastors, athletes, and politicians. It's time for South Florida Live with Jeffrey Brown. The most engaging, impactful, informative, and entertaining talk show ever. Get ready to hear the voices of many local, state, and national artists, musicians, comedians, pastors, athletes, and politicians. It's time for South Florida Live with Jeffrey Brown.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. And listen, welcome to the South Florida Live Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Jeffrey Brown. And listen, as we always start our podcast, we always say, this is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. So come on, guys. Let's go. Join me on this evening. Guess what? Let's talk finance. Okay, let's do that. Every Thursday, this is what we do, 7 p.m. So those that are coming on, come on in. Those Facebook viewers, I need you to do this. I need you to go ahead and like and share, please. Everyone that come on, I need you to like and share. Would you do that for me? My YouTubers, you know what to do. Hit that like and share button. Hey, listen, if it's your first time viewing us by YouTube, I need you to do me a big favor. I need you to hit that subscribe button for me, please. And once you do that, I need you to click on notification, that little bell, and click all. That way you'll be notified every time we go live. Would you do that for me, please? Thank you. Hey, y'all, we got a special guest with us tonight. Oh, my God. You don't want to miss this episode tonight. Yes, we are one. Listen, I hope everybody's got it out the vote. I hope everybody is doing your duty, taking care of that for you. Please go ahead and vote. All right, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds and we're going to get started. Let's do this. All right, Facebook YouTubers, let's do this. I need some likes. I need some shares. I need some hearts. I often say, if I say good evening to you, I was raised where you're supposed to say good evening back. Would you do that for me? Thank you. Ten seconds. That's the way it is. 5. All right, here we go. It's that time. Hey, y'all, Listen, come on in. I need you to join me on tonight. It's going to be a powerful, engaging, informative conversation on tonight. You do not want to miss this one tonight, y'all. Trust me, you do not want to. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss this one tonight. So you need to be a part. So go ahead. I need you to do this. I need you to go ahead and tag a few people, Facebook people. Tag a little my viewers. Tag someone. Let them know the South Florida Live podcast is on. We're talking finance. You don't want to miss this on tonight. You're going to learn something tonight. Because our special guest is going to come in and share some things with us tonight that we probably don't know, and she's going to help us on that tonight. But I do have my sister with me tonight. She is here. Yes, she is. She had me a little worried there for a minute. But she is with us tonight. And you know who it is. It's the one and only. It's the lady. My sister. We are talking finance tonight. You want to join us? Be a part of this right here with my sister, the one and only Lisa Rogers Cherry. Good evening, sister.
Hello, how are you?
Listen, I'm doing well. I dare not complain because I woke up this morning in my right mind.
Lift your hands and tell them thank you.
Thank you. So I'm good. I had a productive day today. A little busy, a little crazy. I mean, actually a little crazy. I'm supposed to do something and forgot to do it. But I end up doing it in the nick of time. So so that's the kind of day I had. But I thank God for those type of days. I really do.
Those days and people like me keep you on your toes.
Yes. Yeah. Really. Tell me about it. Yes, you do. How about that? Hey, listen, I'm excited about tonight. We have a super special guest with us tonight. One of your friends, your sisters, and she's now my sister and friend tonight, going to be joining us tonight, and we're going to be having a conversation on tonight. So further ado, I'm going to let you bring her on. I'm going to let you introduce her, and let's get this thing started.
She was one of the first people that I met when I started to do community development in South Florida. She's amazing. She's fantastic. Everybody who knows her loves her. And I don't know too many people like that. She has set a high standard for all of her little sisters to follow. And she's just dynamic. And I'm glad that she was available to come on tonight because she has a fantastic story to tell. She's helped thousands of women, men, boys and girls. Everywhere she goes, she's helping somebody. This is my friend, my sister, my big sister, Marcia Berry Smith. I'm so glad she's here. Marcia!
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, little sis. Hey there, little brother now.
I told Marcia, you're my big brother, and she's my big sister, so we're all siblings.
We all siblings. We're all one. That's why I played that song. We are one. We are all one.
We have to get a theme song for Marcia. Marcia, what's your theme song?
One love.
One love.
Hey.
One love. What?
Yes.
One love.
Yeah, that's that.
No, I will sing. I promise you that one.
You gonna sing it for us?
No, I'm
not
sorry.
tonight.
I have many talents, but that's not one of them.
Marcia, tell the people a little bit about you. I mean, your bio is like 10 pages and the awards are like 50 pages. So just tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done.
I am
Get up, stand up for your right.
a 35-year career banker. Bankers don't retire, they go into consulting, which is what I did several years ago. My specialty was affordable housing, was assisting people, especially people of color, to become homeowners, because that's the only way you can get fast, quickly into generational wealth building. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody that looked like me was going to be the good ancestor when the day came. And so from Miami to Riviera Beach, I plowed forward year after year, creating a H2H Home Buyers Club. It's from homeless to homeowner, from hopeless to hope-filled, breaking the cycle at last. And that still remains to this day. There are 6 clubs throughout the Tri-County area. Now I have been drawn into the arena of affordable housing primarily as a solution to homelessness, domestic violence, and the precarious position that kids, youth aging out of foster care have been faced with for many years, but it is now coming to the forefront. And as you know, with the most recent bill, we are supposed to arrest anyone sleeping on the streets at night based on Broward County's new law. So that means that homelessness is now a crime. And so where it is a fact that homelessness very, very often is caused through lack of affordable housing, that now is my newest mantra and my newest advocacy that I'm shouting from the mountaintops, especially the women who cannot stay, but they cannot go from their abusers. That's it. That's me. I have 7 grandchildren and 5 children and all kinds of other things. But thank you for your sweet and kind introduction.
Yes, that's wonderful. I didn't know you had 7 grandchildren.
I think so. Yes.
Okay, it's
2
7
and
now.
3, 5 and 2, 7.
Yep. Okay. Well, congratulations. That's a blessing. And I know you're an awesome, wonderful, sweet grandmother because you're the best big sister. So let's get into
I'm called the cool grandma.
What do they call you?
The cool, different names. Some of them I won't share.
Huh?
But I'm cool. That's a cool grandma.
I get it. Let's talk about the intersectionality of affordable housing with homelessness, domestic violence, and children in the foster care system. That's a whole lot of topics, but I know that you can handle them all. Many people see the homeless issue and homeless people as negative. Drug addicts, they think all of the homeless people have mental health challenges. What's wrong with that picture, Marcia? We know better.
That picture is so false. Nationally, around 35 to 40% of homelessness is attributed to factors other than addiction or mental health.
Wow.
There's systemic inequalities, there's economic instability, and specific data for Broward will hammer down the fact that affordable housing is one of the largest causes of our homelessness. Let me say this, Broward, we are number last in the nation for affordable housing.
Wow.
So all of this filters into the homeless population and especially the unseen homeless. We're talking about teachers. We're talking about office workers who are living in their cars, who are washing up the children in McDonald's bathrooms, taking them to school, and then going to work themselves with nobody knowing that this is the way that they live because they cannot find somewhere that's affordable.
Wow.
To live.
That's so heartbreaking, and it's real. I worked with some students not too long ago, and that was their situation. And they said, Miss Lisa, do you have an extra shirt or anything in your car? And when I worked with different organizations, I have clothes, I have food, I have all kinds of stuff. and I happened to have some shirts, and I didn't know what they needed them for. I just thought, hey. So I gave them to them, and the guy who was in charge of them told me, he said, I know you don't know, but they're homeless. They wanted clean clothes.
Yes.
And they got the clean clothes from me, stuff that was in the trunk of my car for maybe 2 weeks. And they were excited to get it.
Oh, yes. You see, part of the problem too, Lisa, speaking from the financial aspect, Broward has a huge population of service workers. We're a tourist mecca. And so there's a lot of hospitality, a lot of restaurants, and so on. And this is part of what we call the ALICE population. That's an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Earning People. So these are people that are working, but they are earning, although they're not at the poverty level, they're like just barely above the poverty level. In fact, 46% of Broward residents fall into the ALICE population.
Wow. That's a lot. That's almost half.
Exactly. And if you have a 1-bedroom apartment that the average cost is $2,200 a month to rent, and a 2-bedroom somewhere around $2,800 to $3,000, how are they going to even manage that?
They can't.
So they are 50 to 70% cost burdened, which means that housing and transportation, not food, not health, housing and transportation eat up 70% of their monthly take-home pay.
I'm going to ask you something, Marcia. What does the lack of affordable housing have to do with children having to be put in foster care?
I was hoping you would ask me that, Lisa, because I spent the last couple of days working on several projects to try to bring some new units out of the ground. And I'll say this. This is a quote now from fosteringcareimprovement.org.
Okay.
61% of removals of children into foster care, 61%, is due to inadequate housing.
Okay.
That means, and of course, inadequate housing has a lot of layers to it. But what this means is that if you turn it around, that 61% or a huge percent of that percent need not be in foster care if there was adequate housing for their parents or grandparents or another family member to be able to keep them. Now, isn't that a sad statistic?
That's very sad. That's very sad.
We could put the foster care business out of business.
I remember when I was little, a few years ago, parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, they would take kids in when something happened to somebody in the family. It was like, it takes a village. They wouldn't dare let anybody go into foster care. But now I'm seeing parents putting their children out because they may realize that they are LGBTQ.
Oh, that is a population that is especially, it is really, really, it's sad because they are caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place. And oftentimes they're refused by their families, as you just mentioned. Even people who cared for them are afraid to take them in. And this is especially true in our people. There's just a stigma that seems to be even harder to bear for the island folks, as well as the Black population. And so they are, and they of course they're victims. They're victims of other types of abuse. That's unmentionable.
So Marcia, I know of one program that helps with this. Do you know, or can you share some programs in Broward or nationally? Because people tend to watch our show after we go off. I mean, thousands of people tune in later that may be able to help with the foster kids who are struggling with housing. They have nowhere to go. They've aged out of foster care. They're 18 and they look up, what are they going to do? What do they do now?
So Yes, I'll get to giving you a couple of some of the programs,
Okay.
and perhaps we can even have Jeffrey put it up, on the screen afterwards. But what I wanted to say is that once they get to 18,
Hmm.
now just picture this: you've been living with auntie or uncle or a foster parent, and
Hmm.
at 18, you are put out literally on that day. I have had a kid brought to me who was receiving a check. He had no ID. He had no driver's license. He had been brought down here from New York out of foster care there. He turned 18, and on his 18th birthday, they put all his stuff in a bag and said, "Here you are, go." He couldn't even cash the check that he had. They came to me at the bank, and I was able to get approval for us to cash a check for him. So that's what I'm talking about. At 18, that happens. Now, if they go into post-secondary education or services or support, they can get a stipend until they're 23, providing they were aged out of qualifying foster care. That means that they weren't surfing on somebody's couch and just turned 18. They were in the system. Okay. And they were not adopted, and they're enrolled in some type of a secondary type. They will get stipend from 18 until they're 23. But if they drop out of class or anything else happens to derail them, that money is gone. And that money is not even enough to pay rent per month.
Hmm.
Okay. So there are, especially these that I'm going to mention, there are others, and please forgive me if I haven't called your name. The Flight Center and Handy. Handy, especially, they take care of kids who are still in foster care, kids who are still in high school, in middle school, and so on. They provide aftercare, they provide education, workforce, all the way through. Flight also is extremely hands-on with their population, so that those kids graduating from there, they continue in with a continuum of care even after, but they have been insulated and developed in a nurturing situation. When you get to 18 out of foster care, unless you had a really, really phenomenal foster parent, you're not ready at 18. At 18, I
No.
wasn't ready, and I had nurturing and so on.
Right.
So they're coming out, they're just coming with nothing, neither here nor in their pockets. So Flight Center, Handy. Coming into Broward now is City House, which primarily cares for mothers with young children who are imminently homeless. So, like if you've aged out of foster care, but you have nowhere to, and you become a parent, sometimes a child of 18, 19 has two children. So, City House is another one. Homes Inc.,
Hmm.
LifeNet for Families. And of course, there are the shelters. I'm not talking so much about the shelters tonight because the shelters are for immediate, urgent care. They participate a great deal with the mentally ill and those who suffer with addictions. There's BARC also, Broward Addiction Recovery Center. But primarily for the group that we're talking about, Flight, Handy are the two top ones. There's also Task Force for Homelessness, who give food and assist and so on. So does LifeNet for Families.
Marcia, I've had the privilege of visiting Handy and Homes Inc. The program at Handy is phenomenal. I mean,
Yes.
it's just like, what a blessing. And it's kind of a well-kept secret. A lot of people know, but a lot of people don't know.
Yes, that's so true. And the same thing happens with Flight as well. And part of the problem is if you're giving those types of services very often, they're not able to put up a sign. Usually NIMBYism comes into place.
Right.
And what you hear is, not in my neighborhood. Oh, no. We don't want any low income people. We don't want the homeless. And I imagine as a homeowner, everyone has a certain amount of feeling about this. But what we have to remember is that not everyone fits into the same bucket. Not every square fits into another square place. There may have to be a round hole somewhere.
Yeah. This is great. I mean, this is great information, and hopefully people who need it will share it. And it's funny how sometimes you hear something, you don't need it at the time, but a month later, somebody will call and say, hey, do you know somewhere where I can help some foster kids, some places, some organizations? And you've named some of the top ones that I've heard about. And this is amazing because so many kids, young people are struggling with this. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn to. I was talking to a young lady one day, had no idea that she had aged out of foster care. I mean, amazing, dynamic, ambitious young lady. And I thought she was in college. She was helping me with my social media. And when she finally got comfortable enough to tell me that she had aged out of foster care and she was trying to, figure out life, I couldn't believe it. So homelessness doesn't look like what it used to look like.
Homelessness doesn't look like what it looks like in the movies.
Right. That's good.
It's not at all that story, or not only that story. And then, because you know what, Lisa, in nationally 20,000 children age out of foster care per year. 20,000. I'm not sure what the numbers are in Broward. If somebody really wants to find out, they can see if they can dig that out of some of the research. But 20,000 kids nationally, I mean, to think that the country that we are has, as a part of its school board or part of its Broward schools, a department that takes care of homeless children in school. That's such an oxymoron almost, that you would think that there's a department that takes care of the children in our schools who don't live anywhere except in a car, perhaps. So that's bringing that together. ChildNet, which is the federal and state organization that handles foster care, has a tremendous staff and tremendous programs, but they are exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. And although I would say that they're one of the best, I would tell you that, it's so hard. I mean, it's like $4 million a year to help with. It's just totally appalling.
It's not enough.
No.
Marcia, we know, I see you with your purple on. We're going to talk about, this is Domestic Violence Month.
Yes, it is.
And I want to ask you, how are domestic violence and the lack of affordable housing connected? There must be some kind of intersection.
There is a connection. There is a connection. In Broward, a year and a half ago, 2021, there were 5,500 cases of domestic violence that were reported. That's not counting the ones where the woman is so frightened that she or he, because just as we were talking about before, there are men now, and especially too in the LGBTQ area. Why is this so? The lack of affordable housing and I would say the deep interconnectivity between that is usually because of multiple psychosocial and structural factors. The lack of affordable housing traps the victim in a situation where she cannot leave. If you talk, as I have, to so many victims or survivors Why don't you go? Why don't you leave? The first thing is, I have nowhere to go. I mean, we're talking about fear too. And let me just get personal a minute, because this is no secret. Broward County knows about my advocacy and speaking out. I once was a victim of domestic violence, and I was fortunate enough to become a survivor by leaving. But what the abuser does primarily, and this is absolute fact, and almost a chemical situation that I'm describing. They divide you, they separate the victim from everything, from their parents, from their friends. They put them in a situation where they have no one. Very subtle, very sinister. And one day she or he looks around and there's no one. Either they're scared or they've been run off. Okay, so that's number one. They take away their financial access. You don't know how to handle an account. I will give, what is it you want? I'll give you the money that you need. I'll bring your paycheck home to me, and I'll take care of things. So you see where we're gone there now. So there's a fear. There's immediate, the financial abuse. And then, of course, there is the erosion of self-confidence, the erosion of power on the woman's part, on the victim's part. And when there is nowhere to go, because either she's financially strapped or has been stripped of her any kind of financial access, the cost of housing, for her to leave and rent somewhere else. The other thing is, oftentimes, if there have been calls to the property because of abuse, because of noise, because of screams, that woman or victim cannot rent somewhere else, because the new landlord, when they're doing the background check, oh no, she's going to bring that you people. This is something you hear, you people. So this is where affordable housing comes into play. I was mentioning City House. They bring in the moms and they help them to get their GED, to get a job. They have wraparound services, which is one of the key things. And that's why I have mentioned every single person who takes in the homeless. I'm talking about wraparound services, reestablishing self-esteem, teaching financial literacy, something you and I know like the back of our hands, teaching again, and as well as the kids, because you're talking about trauma-induced behavior when the kids have seen their mom battered or what have you. And going forward and being able to be replenished in a wholesome way in all facets, with affordable housing, with a good job, with believing in yourself, that takes you to where I am, and that's a victor.
Yay! That's a blessing, Marcia. I mean, because in my former life, working with some victims, I would have them ready to share their stories, and they'd say, yes, this is what happened. And then when they get ready to tell it to, the people, they change their minds.
Oh, yes.
Either he came back, or he gave her something, or he told her, you better not tell, or something else is going to happen.
And see, that's the other thing too, and that's why I'm emphasizing on the affordable housing, because if you're able to go somewhere and feel safe, that makes it different. If you're, as we say in the islands, catching with someone, and especially if you have kids, and you're uncomfortable, they're asking you, when are you going to leave? All of this. And a lot of the times, the abusers come back with the charm. They call it the honeymoon. Mm-hmm. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. Oh, baby, I should, why you make me do this? That's a lot. I heard that all the time. Why you make me hit you? Why do you make me hit you? Why didn't you iron my shirt? Why didn't you? And this is hammering away. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that there are so many facets to this. Ultimately, without accessible housing, the survivors face a cruel choice. Either they endure the abuse or they face homelessness. affordable housing then becomes an essential intervention, if you will. And I want to especially thank Unmute Yourself, which Dr. Jeanette Georges, she has done so much. She's having, by the way, Jeffrey, if you don't mind, she's having a domestic violence summit, which was canceled because of Hurricane Milton, on the 19th of December at City Hall in Lauderhill, where she brings on people telling their story and so on.
Wow, that's great.
That's wonderful. I make sure I get her. She gets my information. She'll send me flyers and stuff. Push that, because like I told you guys earlier, the last 2 Tuesdays, that's what we've been dealing with, domestic violence, and both ladies had the similar story. Now I understand. I see it now why a lot of them are scared, because they have nowhere to go. And some of them, I asked the question, couldn't you go? They were just so embarrassed and so ashamed until they wouldn't go to a family member. So they just stayed.
The other thing too, Jeffrey, is there's a thing called victim shame.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the victim, and you begin to believe the lies, you begin to believe it's your fault. You begin, and the shame. And as Lisa, that's a lot of reasons too why women don't talk about it. They're ashamed, as though it's something they should be ashamed of. For many years, when I was climbing the corporate ladder here, I remember that's not even something I would vaguely make reference to, especially in the corporate banking world. Oh, no, definitely not. Because immediately you're set aside as those people, you people, okay? Until the day came when I realized that I had probably been given this as a gift that I could use to help other women across.
Wow.
I had to get past the shame. I had to get past owning any of it. And I had to make sure that there were women who knew you can get out. You can be, yes, you can. And as a matter of fact, when I finally started telling my story, my beloved late husband said to me, if you're going to tell it like it, don't tell it like a newspaper reporter. Talk about the guts and the blood and the scars, And then I realized something else. You have to talk from your scars. You can't talk from the wound.
Yeah.
That's still too fresh. That's still too deep. But once that wound has had a scarring, has where you're not as tender around it, then your voice comes out. Then you can speak. They did an ad of the whole back page of the Sun Sentinel. It used to be a huge newspaper then. They had 3 of us. It was the former mayor, Christine, and another lady, Solene Sutton, and myself. Big pictures. Which of these 3 women escaped domestic violence?
Wow.
And underneath it said, fortunately, all 3, but not every woman is as fortunate.
Yep.
That turned Broward County upside down. People, the mayor herself, and she was like my lead into this. And people would come up and they'd whisper, I saw the ad. And I'd say, why are you whispering?
because that's something that everybody's afraid to talk about. And I mean, to the point where, and I mentioned it on my podcast during Tuesdays, that's one of the issues with the church. They don't even want to talk about it. And it's sometimes it's happening right they're in the church. And I told somebody the other day, your pew partner that you sit by every Sunday could be one of those, but they won't express it. They won't give into it, because you said earlier is that shame factor. So and this week, and I told them on last Tuesday, I said, and people want to say women aren't strong enough.
Let me have it. Let me have them.
Because I believe, and I said this about the man, I don't think we would have endured. if it was in that fashion, in that way of being, I mean, physically, not just mentally, but physically abused, I
Yeah.
don't think the brother would make it through. Yeah, because women, your will, you have a strong willpower. Women
Especially
just
if you
have
have
that.
children, that'll put the fighting spirit into us.
Yeah,
Is fighting for the lion cubs. I'm a Leo. My lion cubs are that nobody's going to take advantage of them. But even so, here's the other thing too that's very important when it comes to judging. In the
Mm,
beginning, after I used to say, hey, listen, if I got out of that, anybody can. Anybody staying in there, that's on them. And then I realized not every moccasin fits every foot. You gotta walk a mile in those moccasins yourself
mhm, mhm.
before you can judge that
Right.
woman or that person. You have no idea, none, what they have either been through, and of course, too, with what they're calling now the intergenerational um, trauma, where
Mhm.
children, women who saw their fathers beat their mothers or their stepfathers or their uncles,
Hmm.
and so it's almost become a part of the DNA, and their children in turn come
Yeah.
out traumatized, even if they've not actually witnessed it.
Because they think that's the life. They've seen that life, so they think
Yes,
that life is okay. That's how.
oftentimes
Yeah.
you're very right, very very right. That's isn't doesn't everybody do that?
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the
That's,
thing.
that's just how it is. Now you mentioned about Broward. I'm sorry, I pulled it up. You were saying you didn't know about the kids in Broward County. It says here the total number of students enrolled in the Broward County School Board public school during the 2023-2024 school year was around 258,741. On those of those students, 6,027 were identified as experiencing homeless, compared to 100 4,955 students the year prior.
And you know what also is attached to this is a human trafficking.
Out.
Mhm.
That's what I was getting ready to add.
Exactly.
Because they're out there in the streets.
And if a child is vulnerable
Mhm.
because they've either they're hungry, just hunger alone is a driving force. Somebody offers a child a cupcake, a piece of pizza, and they're hungry. And this is what happens too when school closes and that free lunch, free breakfast and free lunch is not available. People don't even realize that that's oftentimes the only meal that that child has for the day. So when there's no school, that child or those children are oftentimes going hungry. That leaves them so much more vulnerable. And oftentimes the mom has to perhaps do what she got to do in order just simply to put food on the table. And they see that and they assume that that's the norm.
Mhm. Marcia,
Yes.
how do systemic inequalities like racism and economic disparities
Mm.
worsen these issues? I mean, I know racism is real, sexism, all these things come into play, but how do you think that factors in and worsens the struggle?
I'm going to tread lightly on this one because I could get doors closed in my face.
We don't
Not
want
that
doors closed.
not that I'm afraid of that, but let me say this about that. When we had DEI really strong and
Mhm.
we were going all out to teach, to educate, to bring it in, we made some strides.
Okay.
I would venture to say, and I could research the statistics, that this advancement has not only stopped, but perhaps moved back. Because keep in mind, with affirmative action completely out of the way, no one who has an unequal judgment of people is going to hire someone because they're equal to someone who is not a minority. They're going to go for what they're going to go for. So you find that it has affected to some extent the growth in people's career. Fortunately, we have so many, especially in Broward, so many strong women, Black women, like yourself, who have been deeply, profoundly educated and want to give back. But inevitably, as in Broward, the statistics all lean toward everything: home ownership, rental, places, crime. One of the cities in our county that has the highest number of African Americans in their population also has the highest number of domestic violence calls.
Wow. So there is correlation. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yes, there is correlation. But what I must really run to urge us to is to look at the other things, the other factors. It doesn't have anything to do with the color of our skin.
Mm-hmm.
It's not genetic. It's not a DNA thing where people who are Black beat their partners.
No.
You have to take in the other socioeconomic factors. You have to take in the lack of generational wealth building that has been denied to us for so many hundreds of years, and factor all of that together so that the growth, the Urban League, for example, is one of the prime places where I've seen them able. Dr. Baugh is amazing, and
Yes,
Courtney Biscardi amazing at helping to rebuild that, and consequently rebuild not just the effort and the image, but also the results, the outcomes. But it's going to take longer than my lifetime for us to see a huge decrease in one or increase in the other, depending on how you look at it. It's still a work in progress and will be for many years, I'm afraid.
Wow. That's a good answer, and it's a tough answer. I think that we all have a lot of work to do. And I remember when Bishop Curry was our pastor, during Domestic Violence Month, they put the pamphlets in the bathrooms. And the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? And it was like, if you're experiencing it, you can call right now in the bathroom, from the bathroom. And I'm like, it never even crossed my mind. They have safe words in bars now. You order a certain drink. I love that. I mean, that's fantastic.
I tell you something else too. I think my mantra in life is to plant trees under whose shade I do not expect to sit and whose fruit I do not expect to enjoy. Mm-hmm. And that's such a powerful way to live and to work. Years ago, I did a presentation to the graduating doctors, the interns at Nova. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about domestic violence. And I said to them, oftentimes a woman coming into your exam room, that's her only opportunity that she may have to express fear, to show that she's concerned. That's your opportunity to say, do you feel safe? If you see bruises, to ask, how did this happen? To have some type of an escape plan, even in place to assist. You need to have some way in which women can reach out without being identified. So fast forward 2 years ago, I saw something on Facebook where someone was looking for me. And I said, well, here I am. And she said, well, what happened was she went to a new doctor. And the nurse brought in this, the papers that you fill in, and this one page had questions. Do you feel safe? And she asked them, where's this come from? And the nurse said, you have to ask the doctor. And it was one of those clinics with several doctors. So she asked him, and he said, I was an intern, and a lady called something Smith, something Marsha, I think. Anyway, she talked to us about this and blah, blah, blah. And he said he decided if he ever got into a practice, and they talked, and they created this ripple effect. So again, speaking out, just what Jeffrey was saying about speaking out, not being afraid to talk, not being afraid to tell your story. Obviously, being cautious. Nobody wants to, but it's important. If you have a story, tell it.
And you never know who's listening.
That's the point. Here we are. This doctor, I don't even know who he is.
And you add impact. You know, my favorite story, you always have the best stories, the starfish.
Oh, yes. The starfish story is one of my favorites. You know that one, don't you, Jeffrey? Yes?
Mhm.
Share it, Marcia. Share it.
Yes.
Okay. So this young fellow was on the beach early morning, just before the sun came up. And this lady was walking along the beach, and she saw him in the distance, and it looked almost like he was dancing. And so when she got closer, she realized that he was picking up starfish and throwing them back into the water. And there were hundreds scattered on the beach that the tide had brought in. So she said to him, what are you doing? He said, well, in my marine biology class, they've taught us that if the starfish get stranded on the sand and the sun comes up, it will kill them. So I'm saving their lives by throwing them back in. And she said to him, well, that's very noble, but my son, there are hundreds of these on the beach. Well, how are you going to help? And he picked one up, he threw it in the water, and he said, I bet you I helped that one.
And that's it. I believe we helped one.
That's and that's what I always tell people. I mean, I don't push them to share, but if they did, the thing was, how many lives you would save? You survive, but there's somebody that may not survive.
That's right.
And
Too.
by you just sharing what you did and what you went through and how you finally came to your mind and begin, working a exit plan. Yeah.
Yes,
So
plan you have to. Trust me.
Yeah. Because I had one young lady said she had came to that point that she was going to leave, and doing her washing clothes and whatnot, it was some clothes that she would, while they weren't there, put in her car, and she would take to a friend's house. And she just started doing that, and just doing that until the point where she ended up, most of the clothes that she needed. That way, when she left, at least she'll have clothes.
Oh yeah, I did that. I wore 2 sets of clothes to work every day.
Yeah.
And took off the one underneath and put it in a bag under my desk. That's how I did that plan. But I will tell the ladies out there, and the men too, you know what is the best antidote for an abuser or for being in an abusive situation and leaving? Here is the best reward: success. Success. After time and time again being told, oh, you're not this, you're too fat, you're not this, whatever it is, you'll never be anything without me. When I was promoted and broke the glass ceiling, proverbially speaking, a few years ago, and got that upper C-suite level, and it was published, of course, in the newspaper, I cut it out and I sent it to my ex. And I said, look at what you made me do. Look at what you made me do. Success is the sweetest revenge, my ladies, my friends out there. You go out, you make up your mind, love God, put God first. Let me tell you, He is the rock. He will bring you through anything. In Isaiah it says, I will see you through the water. I will see you through the fire. Not around, not above, not underneath, but through. So you've got to have faith, because without that, sometimes that's the only thing you do have.
Wow. Wow. I'm saying wow because that was the story with all the other two ladies. That they stuck to their faith, and they trust God even in that the midst of their situation, the midst of their trials. They always put God. They always prayed, and even though they weren't talking to others, but they was talking to God.
Yes.
And both of them during their whole ordeal never had a child
Wow.
through it. They were childless through the whole. And that was God. That was
That,
God shielding them.
that was God.
Because,
Definitely that
you
was
know,
God.
if they would have, that was going to always be a connection.
Yes. Not only a connection, but also the feeling, do I leave his father? How do I separate him or her from her dad?
Yeah.
It is her father. It is his, I mean, the emotions are manifold. Believe me when I tell you. But you also have to protect that child. I believe that sincerely. There's a saying, if your son of 6 or 7 sees his father beat his mother, the chances are he will be in jail by the time he finishes high school.
Wow.
Horrible statistic, sad, but so often true, and too often true about our own kind.
Wow.
This
It's
is
good.
really powerful. I mean, this is, Marcia, thank you. This has been amazing. And when the voice of the Lord told me to call you to see if you were available to do this, I mean, it's confirmation. I wasn't even thinking about Domestic Violence Month, and I'm thinking that I'd like to dedicate the show to one of my sorority sisters, Tracy Trammell, whose husband killed her and then killed himself, and we were all just like shocked because she didn't look like what she was going through.
Yes.
And she wasn't, low income. She wasn't blah, 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 whatever people have in their mind, homeless, sitting out on the corner. She had all the things. She looked amazing. She was beautiful. She was wonderful. She had a loving 2-parent home. She loved her parents. She loved God, but he killed her.
Yes.
And we were all there, and she told all of us a piece of the story. When she finally told us, she's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out. Everybody had a different piece of the story. And, everybody said, well, I could have done this. I could have done that if we knew.
Yes.
We didn't know.
Right.
So thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Jeff, for letting me have these premonitions. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do today. And he's like, what? And he lets me do it. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
It's because I trust you. I trust you, and whatever you do, I know it's something that's been put in your spirit to do it. So I'm good, and it works out for the good because, like I say, the last 2 Tuesdays, that's what we've been dealing with.
So this is confirmation.
That's a problem. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And thanks to all the people out there who helped me to grab statistics and numbers that I may not have had at my fingertips. Sarah, my honey bunny, my admin, thank you. And Jeffrey, God bless you. Keep your mission going. Lisa Rogers, Cherry, my little sis. Girl, we are inseparable, attached at the hip. And I bless you. I truly do.
Thank you. I love you. And Jeff, I appreciate you all. And it's been great and it's been powerful. And I want to leave the thought of prayer for anybody who has experienced it, who is experiencing it now, and who in the future will. If you don't have anything else, hold on to your hope and to your faith. God is here. That's all I can say.
And that's the thing that you have to hold through. Either if you're a woman or a man, you got to hold on to your faith and you got to trust God. Even when you seem like you can't trace him, he's there. You got to trust him. I mean, Job asked the question, where are you, Lord? In the midst of it, where are you? And he said, I was there before you were born. I was there. I've been there all the time. carrying you, watching over you, covering you. I know it looks bad now, but if you trust God, he'll see you through it. We have witnesses. We have a survivor here. We had 2 survivors the last 2 weeks. So, and you all, that's the thing that got me. You all said the same thing, that you stayed true to your faith.
Have
You
to.
trust God.
Thank God.
So thank you.
When you have nothing, but only God. God is the only thing that you
He'll
need.
keep you. And he said he'll keep you. He'll keep you. He'll keep you in perfect peace.
But I want to thank our loyal followers and listeners, and some people can't come on when it's live, but they come on soon after, and I really appreciate that. So God bless you all, and hopefully our message helps. You can share it with somebody else, and blessed to be a blessing.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Once again, thank you. I said thank you. I appreciate you. Love you guys so much. Hey, y'all. Once again, my sisters join me tonight, and I appreciate you so much. So until the next time, I'll see you guys later. Okay. All right. Love y'all. That's an action word. Hey, listen, South Florida Live. Hey, you've been tuned into the South Florida Live podcast. I thank everyone that's been a part of this, that were viewing, major comments. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. What a wonderful, powerful evening it has been. So once again, until next week, I'll say this. Let's go out and vote. Let's vote, y'all. Let's vote. If you haven't did your voting privileges yet, please go out. If you know someone that need to go get them. I'm taking my seniors this week. All my seniors that can't get out, I'm going to pick them up, and I'm taking them this week. So I got a few tomorrow. So, hey, y'all, let's get out and vote. Let's do what we need to do. Encourage somebody to vote. Hey, listen, as I always say, I'll pray for you. You pray for me. Hey, let's watch God change things. God bless you.
Email your idea for show topics to the South Florida Live Show at gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in to South Florida Live with your host, Jeffrey Brown.